Mo. I had this idea that I would interview my friends who read, and today my friend Isaac is here and he reads. So I have some questions I'm going to ask Isaac, and we're going to film this little interview. How do you feel about that?
It was great. I'm very excited.
We should talk about how we know each other and why we're friends, or how we're friends.
Should I talk about it too?
Yeah, you should talk about it.
Okay. Should I tell the long version of the story?
Well, we don't have infinite battery life, so like not that long.
Graduated from a very nice private university in upstate New York. I immediately moved back into my parents' house and started working at a coffee shop with my friend from kindergarten who had stayed in the neighborhood. It was around the corner from my mother and father's house, and Mo also worked there. You also worked there. Should I talk to you?
Whatever you're comfortable with. You can talk to me, you can talk to the camera. If you're talking to the camera, you should look in the lens, not in the viewfinder. That's the trick for that one.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so we've been friends for a long time. When was that? That was like 2004?
2006, 2007. I didn't graduate college until 2005, so 2006 was the earliest that it possibly could have been.
That seems crazy, because I started working at the Fall Cafe in 2000. Wait, when did the Twin Towers fall? 2001. 2001. So I started working there in 2002.
Yeah.
Which is, so I worked there a long time before you worked there.
Yeah, you worked there a long time with Tavo.
With Tavo.
We discovered their mutual appreciation for art stuffs and comic books and giving away free coffee. And, doing crossword puzzles and listening to music
and reading.
Eating sandwiches.
What kind of books do you read? Like, what sort of genres do you prefer, and like what are some of your like favorite books?
So in anticipation of this being a question that you might ask me, I was thinking about it on my drive out to New Jersey. I think that the books that I like the most are ones with kind of like weird timelines, like books that jump around in time a lot.
Interesting.
Where the sort of, arrow of the story is like kind of zigzagged and chopped up and like mixed around. We both really like that, or I really like that Time Zero book. That was probably one of the first books that I ever gave you that I was like, I really like this book.
That's true. That's a question later too, so we can talk about it more. But actually, I was thinking of books that are similar to that we read together too. So.
Yeah. Obviously, we both really sort of had a little bit of a Kurt Vonnegut thing that we shared early on. Books that kind of jump to my mind when I think about some of my favorites are definitely mostly books where you can't really tell what's going on. You have to kind of invest a lot of energy capital into sort of unpacking it, and then they have the big reveals. House of Leaves was another book that I read when I was in Portland, Oregon. That I really liked. Yeah, that was like
that's all the buzz right now on BookTube. Even though that's kind of an older book, like a bunch of people are reading that right now, and it's like so crazy with the different timelines and stuff. So
neato.
It's so long though. I don't know if I could read it.
It's kind of difficult to kind of jump into it first to pick up the narrative, but once you kind of get used to it, you just sort of tear through the end parts. And a lot of like sections of it are like written with these kind of like disambiguated like kind of word patterns, which seem really complicated, but it winds up being like 24 or 30 actual words on the page. It's just they're kind of scattered around.
Yeah. Apparently there's like a bunch of different ways you can read it. Like you can read it linearly, like you can just read it straight through and like read the footnotes as you're reading and the second footnotes or whatever. But some people read it like they'll read one person's perspective and one person's footnotes, and then they'll go back and then they'll read it a whole second time and just read the other portion, the like file portion.
Oh, I don't see why you would do that.
Sure, I didn't read the book.
It makes a lot of sense if you read it sort of in the chopped up way that they did it.
That's interesting. So do you have like a top 3 books of all time that you could name?
I don't know. I mean, just going based on when I've been asked that question in the past, I sure say Time Zero to a lot of people when they ask me that question.
I don't really remember that book that well.
It's like the reverse. It's like this guy's life in reverse, and like in the beginning of it, he's like old, and he's like going to the bathroom, and like poop's going into him, and then like at breakfast, he's like barfing food onto the plate, and he sees his whole life like in rewind, and as he kind of goes back and becomes younger and stronger, you sort of, you know, discover these things about this guy who seemed to have a normal, like, albeit backwards kind of life that he was living in, like, suburban America, and it turns out he's this, like, you know, do people know about? Should I, like, you know, be coy about this, or?
Well, yeah, I guess you don't want to, like, spoil. No spoilers.
Yeah, that's what happens in the book. I like that book, The Overstory, a lot when I read it last year.
Oh yeah, that was
really good.
Like that. I didn't realize it was all about trees when you were reading.
It's all about trees. Yeah. I mean, everybody that reads it loves it. It's just it's another one that kind of starts slow, and then, you know, once you sort of figure out how the book that you're reading is being told to you, it really kind of sucks you in.
So when did you start reading? What's like a really early memory of reading for you? Did your parents read to you?
No, I hated. Oh yeah, that's true. I guess my father did read me Moby Dick when I was a little kid going to bed.
There you go.
That was like my nighttime ritual, was being given a Dixie cup of seltzer and being read a chapter of Moby Dick. But I hated reading in like junior high and high school. I would never really read the stuff that I was assigned. But then once I got through doing it for school, you know, my mother was, you know, worked in publishing, and there were just books everywhere, all around my house, and lying on the floor in corners just piled up. She would just take free books every time she saw a book in like the kind of publishing house bookstore, and so there was a lot of kind of stuff lying around that was available to me. I guess when I was not reading in junior high and high school, I did read a lot of like I read like John Irving and E.L. Doctorow novels, like by accident, you know, over the summer, just because they were lying around. And my mother would be like, "You can't read this. There's like a dirty part in it." And then I would read like a 700-page mid-century novel and, like, you know, find the one dirty part inside of it that I really wanted to read.
Now, when you read, are you more of like, do you read mostly for pleasure? It sounds like the books that you read are for pleasure, or do you read like more for information? Do you read any nonfiction?
I think I just finished the John Lewis book. That was a nonfiction book. I just read
but not
this,
the comic.
No, this biography by this white guy about John Lewis. But it was really well written. Just amazingly written. I also read a book about, what's that guy's name? The Apple guy who died. The guy who made up Apple. What's his name?
Tim Cook?
No, the guy that made it up, though.
With
the guy that took
with
the
the
credit for making it up.
Turtleneck? The book we saw today in that Free Little Library?
No, but after he, like, left the company and it went to shit, and he came back and then, like, you know, fixed it completely, and then, like, retired on a dime, I got really sort of interested in what the deal with that story was. Yeah, Jobs. I read a couple of like, books about the bios of Steve Jobs.
Did you watch that movie with
No, I never watched the
Fassbinder?
movie. But it was crazy, because I was like, what just happened to this guy in his life? What a weird thing to have happened to him. And then I read like kind of a pre-him dying biography that was really good. It was like a tiny little hardcover. That's another reason that I like reading books, is if they're good enough size to fit into my pocket. And I really like them.
And I think the size and shape of books is very important.
Yeah.
Over April, I read a lot of books that were not a good size or shape, and that like really dragged my reading down.
That's why I can't hardly read hardcovers. You can't take hardcovers with you anywhere without a backpack. And I'm not trying to wear a backpack just so I can read a book. If I can just buy like pocket-sized dime store sci-fi novel and fit it in my back pocket, no problem.
But you could totally fit a hardcover book in your Grumpy Cat messenger bag that you just got.
Should we take a clip and show
We'll do it later. We'll insert a clip, don't worry. Do you prioritize reading now? It sounds like you make sure that your books fit with your lifestyle, but do you make sure that your lifestyle fits with reading?
Yeah, I think now a lot of my friends have like kind of learned to come to define me as like a reading guy, and so it's all a lot of people are talking to me about when like I sit down and talk to them, and so a part of it is because I really want to read. Like I really sort of love the experience of like, you know, getting kind of deep into a book and not feeling that kind of urgent pressure to do anything else besides like sit down like by myself and read a book. But because it's been kind of projected onto me as a part of my personality, it's probably like a little bit of the pie chart of why I spend so much time looking for books. Also, you know, bookstores and supporting local economies and. You know, there's lots of reasons. It's not any one in particular.
Yeah, 2 follow-up questions to that. One, you mentioned bookstores. Do you have a favorite indie bookstore near you?
I'm glad that the one on Smith Street exists because it's nice to have kind of a like, you know, trendy local bookstore. But I tend to prefer my bookstores with used books in them. I like Broken Spines and like, you know, feathered pages and stuff. I think old editions are great. You know, I like them better than like new editions of books.
So then my second follow-up question was, do you read for escapism? Like a lot of people that I watch their booktubes say that they read for escapism, to like escape reality. But I would not say that's why I read books. Is that why you read books?
There's probably a component that's like kind of anxiety alleviating if you like have a book that you can just kind of sit and read and put your own sort of thoughts aside for a little while.
Yeah, that's true.
That's helpful. I don't think that I do it compulsively. Sometimes I'll read books just so that I can go to sleep faster.
Boring books?
Yeah, mostly boring books.
Mostly boring books.
Sometimes hardcover books that I just have sitting around the house. I guess really I just sort of read in search of a book that's gonna be your next favorite book, right? Like you just sort of hope that you find like another really cool book that you can, you know, especially if all of your friends are looking to you for book recommendations, that you can like not just tell them Time's Arrow or the OverStory again. You know, you give them a new book that you're reading. That's cool.
Do you get to discuss books with a lot of people? Like, do you read the same books as other people, and do you get to like talk about them? Or do you do what Chris does, which is like tell you the whole plot of the book? Like, I like that personally, especially books I'm not going to read.
What do you mean?
Like, I'm never going to read those Reacher books, so I love when somebody tells me the whole plot of a whole Reacher book, because then I don't have to read it, but it's, like, fun. Do you have a lot of other people that, like, have also read the OverStory? Like, I haven't read the OverStory, so we can't discuss it. But we can, like, talk about the themes, but, like, do you like it when a friend of yours has, like, you read the same book?
You know what's funny is I think that sort of the entire end goal of commiserating with somebody about a book that I've read or that they've read or that we've mutually read is just that sort of like, oh yeah, I read that too.
So you don't need a deep discussion.
That whole moment. There's certain books, like I've read books about grief and loss at times when that was important to me, and other people have been like, you know, going through grief and loss cycles, and you know, we can kind of use that to jump into a conversation about deeper feelings that we might otherwise have the opportunity to kind of steer the course direction of the conversation towards. You can make assessments about somebody's personality, like how serious they're willing to be in life by what kinds of books they like reading. If somebody just wants to read Dan Brown novels, then I probably won't have, you know, that much to talk to them about from a sort of sub-psychological standpoint.
Well, I don't know if that's always necessarily true, because people like to read a lot of fluff stuff, and especially if people are reading for escapism, like, they might be interested in reading some Dan Brown, but they might be like, you know, have all the other emotions in their other lives. Just hate reading all the Reacher books. And
but he's hate reading them. And Chris is an incredibly psychologically complex person.
But if you had just met Chris and discovered that he was just reading all the Reacher books, you might be like, ooh, I don't know.
Yeah, I might be. And it would be my loss because, you know, he's a very nice person. We could have been talking about baseball and bluegrass music and like lots of cool stuff. Yeah. But I would have heard, you know, Jack Reacher and been like, oh, isn't that Tom Cruise movie? I don't need to be friends with this guy. I look for the opportunity from the, like, mutual appreciation of a book. I tend to sort of operate very optimistically, you know, when it comes to friendship in general. You know, if I were to confirm that somebody only read Dan Brown books to the exclusion of all other written content, I would be like, you suck, I don't want to be here.
That's an interesting point, too, because I think what you're talking about, too, is, like, the shared reading experience. And one of my next questions was if we have similar reading tastes, which we kind of already talked about, that we do have similar reading tastes, that we kind of like books about like time and timeline and people's thought processes and their lives. Do we have a shared reading memory? And I think we already touched on that as well with Time's Arrow, but also with Kurt Vonnegut. I remember specifically, we were cat-sitting that cat?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were reading the books out loud to each other.
Bluebeard, just the Bluebeard.
Just the Bluebeard, yeah, true. I don't think we ever finished it.
No.
But we were talking also about Cannery Row, and that you like to share that reading experience with people specifically, and that gives you some insight into their personality. Are there other examples of that in your life?
Of reading out loud books? I think that from reading so much, I definitely kind of hear words in my head differently. Maybe it was just because my dad was so good at reading out loud, and then my mom was so good at reading out loud, and then, you know, that just became a part of the way that I hear words in my head. And so sometimes to kind of, and I don't know if I ever would have discovered it outside of that kind of reading experiment that we did, doing that Vonnegut out loud. And, you know, he's also like a really cool guy to read out loud, because, you know, that stuff flows so kind of unusually. Spoken short stories, spoken poetry kind of events always appeal to me. I like to hear, you know, written words coming out of people's mouths. This reading thing that I've become identified with is such sort of a quiet, like, you know, lonely thing to do. The sort of moments when you do figure out how to kind of take that outside of your body and do it with other people are kind of especially sacred. So you can't do it with anybody.
Right,
you need to find somebody who, like, that even sounds like an interesting thing to do with. If you can find people to sit and read out loud with, it's amazing.
Do you listen to audiobooks?
No.
No, never. You just recently traveled across country. You didn't listen to a single audiobook?
No, I listened to, like, either 90s hip-hop or 90s alternative grunge the whole way across the country.
Nice.
Yeah.
Are you a podcast person?
I did listen to that kid Jason B. Miss Lawrence's podcast, because he came out with it. Yeah, it's
cool.
It's about listening to grunge albums from the 90s.
Is there a book that you would recommend to me that you've read recently that you think I specifically would like?
I still think that you would like those Elena Ferrante books, maybe. I mean, they're cool. They're just well told. They're cool stories. They're kind of like British mystery TV shows in novel form.
Yeah.
They're also about, you know, Italians in like a poor city a long time ago, just kind of like scraping by and surviving.
I don't know. I'm not really I'm not really a historical fiction. I'm not really an intergenerational fiction, literary fiction kind of person. But I find that interesting that you are, because you read a lot of. A kid
that I really respect, who I came back and saw after the coronavirus was over in New York, started taking an Italian literature course, like, online while he was stuck inside and couldn't go to work, and he just told me that he loved them and read them and gave me all of his. So
what's the first one called?
My Brilliant Friend.
All right, well, I'll keep my eye out in the little free library if I see it. I don't think I'm going to go out of my way, but I feel like if it's there, then I have to pick it up and give it a try. They're also really long. You like long books. The book you're reading now is like 400 pages, we said, right? What book are you reading now?
What book am I reading now? What was it?
I know what it is.
Tell me, and then just cut that part out.
The 3 Body Problem.
Oh, yeah, the 3 Body Problem. That's not that long. The 3 Body Problem.
I know, but I like books like 250 pages.
Yeah.
You are like a 300, 400, 500 page guy.
Well, book. Not necessarily. I mean, like I said, the books that I usually read before the pandemic were all, you know, books that I could fit in my back pocket and walk around with.
Yeah.
So, like, lots of pulp sci-fi from, like, the Cold War. I would walk around with those, and, like, the Princess of Mars stuff.
Yeah.
And Time's Arrow is a tiny book, and just all of those other things were generally pretty small and pretty portable, was like a contingent of it. But then I got stuck in Ojai during the coronavirus, and then there was a copy of East of Eden there, and then I found a copy of that David Foster Wallace book, and so I just started sort of tearing through these long-form novels necessarily because I needed time, and maybe now that's kind of you know, broken my reading system somehow. You know, I need to go back to small books.
Yeah, there's nothing quite so satisfying to me as a small book that's really good.
Yeah.
Like a book that's like short and concise, but like well crafted and like complete. That's like my favorite thing. You should read, I keep trying to get Chris to read this, but you should read The Murders of Molly Southbourne. It's like a very short sci-fi. It's good stuff. What?
That doesn't sound good to me.
No, it is. It's about a girl who when she bleeds, the blood makes a clone of her, and then the clones try to kill her.
That does sound cool, actually.
Yeah,
I do like
sounds
that.
cool. Is there a book that you would recommend, like, to the world?
Everybody needs to read Time Zero.
Oh,
Everybody
yeah.
should read Time Zero at least once. And as a companion piece to Time Zero, I think everybody should read that book, The Avengers. Did I ever tell you to read that book, The Avengers?
I don't remember.
One of the sons of one of the first prime ministers of Israel. This book is about these like Lithuanian resistance fighters during the Holocaust.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that like live in the woods, and then they're in this like kind of polyamorous relationship with each other, and they kill Nazis, and then in the end one of them becomes the first prime minister of Israel.
No, I don't think you ever told me about that. That's interesting.
That was good. I recommended that to a lot of people that I recommended Time Zero to also.
My last question is, do you watch BookTube, or do you follow any readers?
No, it hadn't even occurred to me that this was a thing that I could use the internet for. I did start following on Instagram this poetry account that has like really good poems every day that are out there. Short, really good poems. Like, you know, they're well curated. You know, there's lots of short poems in the world, but these ones all happen to be like...
They're all different poets?
Yeah.
That's just like somebody who likes poetry is posting small
I guess so,
poems.
yeah.
Are you ever going to start your haiku Instagram again?
No, I don't think so.
No, you're done with haikuing?
Yeah.
All the haikus that you have written, will you put them in a book?
I don't know. I think they're okay where they are right now. I really want to make this comic book about, you know, my father and me, and once I've kind of, you know, committed to whether or not that's like a project that will ever be fulfilled, or will just kind of like take me into the post-pandemic era, then maybe I'll circle back and do that again. But I think I'm getting that like, you know, itch to draw scratched by that for the moment.
Is the book about your father about, like, your entire lives together, or is it about specifically one time period?
It's just about August of last year until he dies in January, but or August of 2019 until he dies in January.
Yeah. Last
but
year
there's
didn't count. Nobody. Don't worry. When you say last year, we know you mean 2019.
I really like that David Foster Wallace guy, and like that whole kind of annotative style of writing, and
I've never read any David Foster Wallace.
It's you know, it's a lot of fun to read. It's really fun, like books for readers to read. If you know, as far as turn of phrase etiquette goes, that guy really crushes it.
What was his most famous book?
The Infinite Jest is the most famous
the Infinite
But
Jest.
the best ones are the ones that like compile the short form like nonfiction articles, and like there's a couple books of short stories that are really good. There's a part of me that wants to really sort of, you know, write this well. I mean, my stories, like, you know, just conversationally are so non sequitur infused and difficult to kind of get to the point in. I would imagine I'm free associating a lot of this, you know, story as I'm drawing it. Well, I'll probably run into that at certain points, and a really nice way to kind of clean that up if I want somebody to be able to flip through and read and actually kind of get to the point in this comic book. Then I might be able to kind of, you know, annotate and throw, you know, the kind of non sequiturs into the back.
Is it linear? Like, are you drawing it like time-wise linearly?
It is. I have basically like a bullet journal of everything, because I was trying to keep from going so crazy. So it's all there. I really just have to like flip through the like, you know, 35 days worth of notes and just kind of draw it. And,
oh my gosh, that's
you know,
crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how long I'm gonna do this before I like throw it on the floor and give up, like unable to kind of put what I wanted to put down on the paper.
Well, those are all the questions I have. Is there anything that you want to tell BookTube or say about books?
No.
Wrap it up. We got 1 minute.
I'll check you out on YouTube. I'll like and follow.
Thanks so much. Bye.